Very good evening. Jai Shri Krishna Guru. Thank you for joining the Bhagavad Gita Satsang, the way of life as described by Lord Shri Krishna to Arjuna. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha, Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha, Om Shri Saraswataya Namaha, Om Shri Guru Dattatreya Namaha, Om Shri Mahalakshmi Namaha, Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. We'll be continuing from chapter 6, the yoga of self-control, and we will be learning about urging one to uplift the self, marks of the God-realized soul, and detailed description of Dhyana Yoga. So we'll continue from chapter 6, verse 8 onwards. The yogi whose mind is sated with jnana, that is knowledge of Nirguna Brahma, and Vijnana, knowledge of manifest divinity, who is unmoved under any circumstances, whose senses are completely under control, and to whom earth, stone and gold are alike, is spoken of as a God-realized soul. So what is Lord Shri Krishna teaching Arjuna? In the last verse, in the last satsang, we learnt about how Lord Shri Krishna is explaining to Arjuna that it is only through his own self-effort can he uplift himself. And one's own self is one's own best friend and one's own worst enemy as well. So what is that you want yourself to be? And he also taught about how we have to, become friend, that is with the higher self, learn to conquer the lower self, which is mind, body and senses. And then what is he talking about? He's talking about how one who is, in oneness with the self does not get disturbed with pairs of opposites. So he's saying the very supreme spirit is rooted in the knowledge of the self-controlled man whose mind is perfectly serene amidst of the pairs of opposites. And he's continuing from there again, saying, where is this divine being? How do you attain that yoga? How do you attain that oneness? And once you have attained this, then whatever you have to do as a duty, whatever the duty that you have to perform in this material world, using your body, you will do it is a nishkama karma, which is selfless action. You are not going to be disturbed by whatever the actions that you're going to commit, because you're not attached to the actions itself. And actions don't disturb you. You very well understand that everything is just a play. It's a leela and it's a maya alone. There is nothing real in it. And that's what he's talking about, the God-realized soul. So the one who's a God-realized being does not get affected with the pairs of opposites. So let us continue. That is verse 8. The yogi whose mind is sated with jnana, that is knowledge of Nirguna Brahma. What does Nirguna Brahma mean? That is unmanifest. The Brahma, that is unmanifest divinity, we say. And here he's talking about being sated. See, in the last verse he's talking about the supreme spirit is rooted in the knowledge of the self-controlled man whose mind is perfectly serene amidst of pairs of opposites. Now here also he's talking about Brahma. Brahma is the unmanifest divinity, Nirguna Brahma, and Vijnana, that is knowledge of manifest divinity. So manifest divinity, the knowledge of manifest divinity, who is unmoved under any circumstances. What does that mean? Who is unmoved under any circumstances? Now the yogi, why is he talking about the yogi? See, he's the one who's already God-realized. Here he's talking about the qualities of this God-realized being. So here he's telling the yogi whose mind is sated with jnana, means which is established with knowledge. That is jnana of what? Knowledge of unmanifest divinity, and vijnana, that is knowledge of manifest divinity, who is unmoved under any circumstances. He does not get affected with what happens. He's perfectly in that serene condition. His mind is completely in peaceful state. It's serene. What does serene mean? There is no disturbance. There is no turbulence. Have you seen a still pond? It's perfectly serene, it's quiet, it's peaceful. But what happens when you just put one stone in it, it creates ripples. And then again it comes back to that calmness. That ripple, that we say, the ripples that it creates is what is the disturbance which we feel when just something happens in our world. Now that disturbance comes why? Because we have not controlled our mind, body and senses. We have not conquered it. And that is what he's taught, Lord Shri Krishna taught in the last few verses, which we have already understood. It's not enough understanding, you should be able to apply. See, that's the most important aspect of this. One is to learn. Knowledge, what you're getting right now is knowledge. The Lord is giving us this most profound truth. He's teaching us this esoteric knowledge. But if we don't use that knowledge and apply in our life, how will we understand the truth behind what is he teaching us? It is just going to be mere bookish knowledge. See, people say, I want to be spiritual. Guruji, they come to my Guruji and say, Guruji, tell us what is going to happen to me. Where am I? Where am I? They always keep asking these questions. But if you're not even putting your effort, you don't even come and, ask questions pertaining to spirituality. You don't come and learn. You don't come and do anything. You just come like a visitor once in a while. Not because you want to come and learn. You just want to come and, tick mark. Oh, I came and met with Guruji. And you know what you'll talk? You'll talk all your worldly stuff, which is about, oh, my office, I had this issue, my boss had this issue, my children, my wife, my husband, my whatever nonsensical things. That's what you come and discuss with the Guru. So where is your quest in the spiritual world? So how do you think you're going to get any experience or even, attain any knowledge? The path is never going to open up for you. Neither are you going to ever attain the knowledge, because how much effort are you actually putting in? That's not your goal. Your goal is you just want some cushion, We want to be protected. Because why? You understood a little bit of reality that, okay, whatever karma that I've been doing, whatever the sins I've been doing, I want to eliminate that. How is the elimination going to happen? Yeah, Guruji is there. No, he'll take care of me. I'm sorry, it doesn't work like that. Here also Lord Shri Krishna is saying something very nice to Arjuna. Arjuna is best friend. What is he saying? He's only teaching Arjuna. Please remember, he's not going to do it for Arjuna. Arjuna has to lift his bow and arrow and shoot whether he likes it or not. Similarly, if you have to walk that path of spirituality, in the sense, if you want the God realization, or you at least want to redeem yourself, and you really feel, I do want to attain this or achieve this in my world, I have to walk that path, then you really have to put in your efforts. Just sitting there and saying, Guruji, aap dekh lijiyega, I've just surrendered, what is this? People rattle off these 4 beautiful words my Guruji has taught. They don't understand what does that entail. They say absolute faith, complete surrender, unconditional pure love, exclusive devotion. And then what? Dispassion, detachment and discrimination. None of this even exist. I'm where, ye 4 shabd mein follow kar lunga. What do you mean 4 shabd follow kar lunga? Sorry for my Hindi. People say, I'll live these 4 words. Do you even understand what it means by faith? It is absolute faith. It's not 99.99%. It is 100% faith. Do you even have a faith? When my Guruji says something, people disobey. So where is the question of faith? You've already failed there. You don't listen to a single word of what my Guru is telling. So there is no way that faith exists. Second is what? Surrender. Very beautiful. Even for those who have been on the path of spirituality and learning under the tutelage of my Guruji, to have 100% surrender is a little difficult thing. You know why? The ego still is there. The mind still is existing. See, that is the reason why Arjuna is not able to understand what Lord Shri Krishna is teaching, right? You and me are that Arjuna in this world. We still have that little ego which thinks I, that I exist in us. So where is the question of surrendering to the Guru? If the Guru says the sun is rising from the west, yes, Guruji. What you say is the truth, gospel truth. That is the level of surrender one needs to have. That's the kind of faith one needs to have. Doesn't exist. See, my Guruji will say certain things to certain people. You should do this, go like this, and you go here. People think they know too much. See, experience of God happens when you actually listen to the words of my Guruji and I follow exactly what he says. God, you can't experience God if you have your own ego coming in. And you know what? People they think they know too much. They'll say, oh yeah, I know this person, that person has more knowledge than my Guruji, so that person is going to guide me. Okay, go with that person. Then you're never going to get any God realization. Forget about God realization. I'm sorry, that's a lofty goal that I'm talking about. You will never even experience what God means in your life. This is the reality. And then what? Unconditional love. Where is the question of unconditional love? You are loving because you have some conditions. You have certain expectations. You know, yeah, I fall at my Guruji's feet 1,000 times. You know, somehow my karmas will get redeemed. Whatever the karma that I commit. I'm sorry, it doesn't work like that. Yeah, Guruji is benevolent. Yeah, he's going to cushion a little bit, but please remember, you are going to go nowhere. He's just put you on a path. You know what is that path? See, earlier you were doing all sorts of unrighteous actions in your life. And today when you have met the Guruji, he removes off that unrighteous actions in your life and puts you on the path of dharma. That is all he has done. So that at least you can become a good human being. Forget about you first getting entry into spirituality. Coming into spirituality is not a joke. First you become eligible for that. Spirituality is not a joke. I'm telling again and again to all the people in this world, you know. People think spirituality means escapism from material world. And not just that. Spirituality is just to have fun. It's a very abused terminology, actually. Because people don't understand what is the meaning of spirituality. So what are you thinking? You think Bhagavad Gita is such an easy scripture? You think Lord Shri Krishna has, you know, imparted some fun things to Arjuna? Of course not. He's saying some of the truth, which is the most important thing for a human being to understand. This is the way of life. You know what Lord Shri Krishna is imparting to Arjuna is the way of life. If you want to attain him, there is no other method. This is the ultimate way. And people have their own concocted views, and not just that. They will come and, you know, will talk about how they want to be in spiritual. They have their own rules, do's and don'ts and everything. I'm sorry, it doesn't work. It exactly works how Lord Shri Krishna has defined here. And if you can't live this, then please, you can take a hike. You just can walk out. You don't have to waste your time and waste somebody else's time as well. And don't come and talk dime a dozen nonsense. You know, have little bit of that decency to seek divine. You're sitting in front of the divine and talking all the crap on this material world. Why should you talk that? Can you talk something good, something where you'll be able to progress? That is the reason why my Guruji says, you know, I just need one student. I don't need too many for people, you know, coming to me. I don't want, because I know there's nobody who's capable of it. Because we're all lost in our mind, body and senses. We run after sense objects. We are given into the we want to fulfill our sensual pleasures in life. That is what we're running after. So where is the question that you're seeking the divine? You think having absolute faith, complete surrender is such an easy thing? No, it's not. Till you don't have that craving for the divine Lord every single day in your life, you can't reach there. So my Guruji, you know, he just understands how fragile these human beings are. They're fallible in nature. So he just puts them on the path of righteousness. There is no way he has initiated them on the path of spirituality at all. You know, having come to him, there is some grace because of which you have come to him. And with that little grace, he only shows you the right direction. He's not put you on the spiritual path at all. Please remember this. And this is the truth which everyone should understand. To walk that spiritual path means you have to think only about that one thing day and night. And in the material world, you have to perform your duties. That's called your Swadharma. Following the path of Dharma. And Swadharma will open up only when you progress using the knowledge, and the path will open. The knowledge and the path will open only when you show your effort. How much really spirituality mean for you in life? Until then, nothing will happen. So don't just mouth saying, oh, I am devoted to Guruji. Devoted to Guruji is nothing. You're not going to get anything. Yeah, you'll only get few, you know, grace, and you're going to get certain, should I say, some little knickknacks, like some little bit of benefits. Yeah, that is all you can get. But here he's telling very clearly, self-effort. One has to lift oneself with one's own self-effort. So here also, you know, Lord Shri Krishna can do magic to Arjuna like that. But he's not going to do, you know why? Till the time you don't, you know, empower yourself to understanding the truth about who you truly are, then how is that word spirituality is ever going to be understood by you? What it means to live these words, what it means to become a yogi is never going to be understood by you. So that is why there are no shortcuts to success or to attaining God. You have to walk that path. People say, success, there are different paths to achieving that. So if you take a shortcut to achieving success, it's only short lived as well. You can't retain it for a long time. So again, success depends on individual, what success means to you. To some, success means money, name, fame, recognition, whatever that it might means to each one. But success actually, what does it mean? It means how much effort have you put in reaching that destination. It's not about name, fame, money, recognition. Those are all material worldly benefits. Success is a very unique terminology. So in the material world, it's completely different. See, what is valid in the material world is completely opposite in the spiritual world. So, but the knowledge is the universal truth, knowing which you know how to walk the path in this world, especially the righteous path. That is all you are going to do. So here he's saying, who is unmoved under any circumstances. What does that mean? Who is unmoved under any circumstances? Whether you succeed or fail, you should not be disturbed. Whether you have happiness or sadness, you should not be disturbed. Unmoved. Maybe tomorrow your mother is dying or your father is dying, something is happening, you lost your child. So many things could happen. At that time, are you going to, cry and lose all the things that you have gained? No, see, the body is going to feel the pain, the body is definitely going to feel the pain. Like, if you remember, even Sri Ram cried when Sita Ma was abducted by Ravana. So even he cried, but doesn't mean it doesn't mean that he forgot who he is. It's only the body goes through those emotions or the motions in life at that moment in time. So the body is going to feel, but the one with the understanding, who has the truth, who has understood the real divinity, that is the knowledge of Nirguna Brahma and the knowledge of manifest divinity, one who has the complete understanding and whose mind is seated literally in that understanding of this knowledge, both the unmanifest and the manifest. He says he doesn't move with what is happening in our world. He doesn't get affected by it. So what does it tell you? See, your duty is to do alone. You have to perform your duties to the highest of your God-given abilities and following the path of righteousness. Hard work is very important. Arduous effort you have to put. You're not going to be sitting and lazing around and expecting some miracles to happen. Miracles happen only when you put in your effort, and you have to strive hard. Keep striving to achieving that. It doesn't come overnight. And if you can't do this, then how are you going to become a yogi? It's next to impossible. God realization can only happen when you achieve the equanimity of mind. And you're not going to be disturbed when the pairs of opposites, happens in your life. So he's saying, who is unmoved under any circumstances, whose senses are completely under control, and to whom earth, stone, gold are all alike. Very interesting. Whose senses are completely under control. What does that mean? See, when the senses come in contact with the sense object, immediately what happens? Your mind comes in. Then it starts dwelling in. Then attachment comes. But here, when your senses are completely under your control, the mind doesn't come. Even when the senses come in contact with the sense object, the mind doesn't come. There is no reaction happening. There is no desire or attachment that is happening. Why? Because the mind itself doesn't act over there. I have given this example many a time. My Krishna Guruji, for him, there's no mind body at all. Then there are no 5 sheets except the food body. The other sheets doesn't exist within him. So whatever he's eating, doing, it's just an enactment. He's just doing because he has to sustain his body. But there is no mind body at all. Neither the intellect, none of the other bodies exist within him. So what happens? When his senses come in contact with the sense object, there is no reaction happening. He's just performing an act. The act of, oh, I love this food, I'm eating it, I'm enjoying the food. That's an acting, he's enacting a role. But actually, in reality, there's no, the connection between the senses and the sense object doesn't exist because mind itself doesn't exist. Do you know that's the most beautiful state to attain? Of course, yes, because there's no mind over there. He's the universal self, he's that eternal being. Where is the question of mind there? It doesn't exist. So he's just performing an act of eating and he's showing the world how much he's enjoying the food. Actually, he's not enjoying. There is no, like how when we eat, we say, oh, I love this, can I eat a little more? No, doesn't. In his case, there's nothing like he likes or dislikes. When he sits to eat a meal, whatever gets served in one serve alone, you have to serve him everything at once, and that is all he's going to eat. Nothing less, nothing more. There is no second serving at all. He doesn't take a second serving. Whatever you serve him the first time, that is all he will eat and get up. And that's the way he's built his system, which means he's not craving, he's not letting his senses act as well. But in his case, the senses will never act also because it doesn't exist, because they've already overcome. He's not the body. He's the divine being who just manifested in that body. So that is a truth they understand. He's the Lord himself. So where is the question of enjoyment? It doesn't exist. See, there's a very beautiful story of Sri Krishna and Durvasa Maharshi Muni. So Radha and all the gopis, they are taking food to feed Durvasa Maharshi Muni. So Lord Sri Krishna is sitting on the on a beautiful tree across the Yamuna Nadi, near the river. And Durvasa Maharshi Muni is the other side of the river. Now they are all carrying the food for him and they wanted to feed Durvasa Maharshi Muni. So Lord Sri Krishna is asking Radha Rani, oh, where are you all going? She says, we are going to feed Durvasa Maharshi Muni. And then Radha says, I don't want to talk to you. She says, I'm a little angry. You went, I know what you did last evening. She's just saying something like that. And Lord Sri Krishna said, what did I do? I didn't do anything. No, you went and met Chandravali, no? And I know what all you did. So she was very angry that Lord Sri Krishna went and met Chandravali. So Lord is telling Radha Rani, ask the Yamuna Nadi, if I went and met her or I did something with her, then, she will, if I am lying, she will not open the path for you. Okay. But if I'm not lying, if I'm saying the truth, she will open the way for you. So Yamuna Nadi will open up the path so that you can cross over the other side. And Radha Rani and gopis go to the Yamuna Nadi and then they say, is Krishna telling the truth? The moment she asks this question, Yamuna Nadi parts herself and gives the way. And she's like, she says, I can't believe this. You all are liars, I know you went and met Chandravali and you stayed with her last evening. So she's very angry. She says, I don't understand. Everybody here is, she says, they're all, with you. I don't believe in it. And then she walks across. She's very confused at that moment in time. Then she goes, meets Durvasa Maharshi Muni, the gopis and Radha Rani. All of them feed him. He eats sumptuously and he looks at Radha Rani obviously she's very beautiful. He looks at all the Radha Rani and the gopis. And then Radha Rani is feeling weird. Why is Durvasa Maharshi Muni looking at me like that? And he's eaten all the food. And then he says, then he's telling, Radha Rani is telling Durvasa Maharshi Muni, I hope you have eaten well. I hope you're fulfilled with what we fed you. And then he just blesses them and he says, oh, I've eaten, but I don't think I ate. Something like that. I'm sorry, I've forgotten the story, but he said like, I've not eaten. Where have I eaten? I did not eat, is what he says. So the gopis and Radha Rani get, they feel aghast. I'm like, what is Durvasa Maharshi Muni saying? He just ate everything we fed and he even looked at us in a weird manner. So Durvasa Maharishi Muni again tells Radha Rani and the gopis, see, if I've eaten this food, Yamuna Nadi will not, part the way for you to go back the other side. But if I have not eaten the food and I'm telling the truth, she will, open the way up for you. So again, Radha Rani and all the gopis go and ask Yamuna Nadi, did Durvasa Maharishi Muni eat the food or not? So he said he didn't eat. So she opened the path up for them. So he's like, what is happening? He just ate the food we offered him and he's saying he has not eaten. So both of Radha Rani and gopis are perplexed. And then they go back to Lord Sri Krishna again and says, look, we don't understand what is going on. Even you lied and yet Yamuna Nadi river opened up. Same here, Durvasa Maharishi Muni also did the same thing. And still Yamuna Nadi opened the way for us. What is it then? So she asked him. At the time, Lord Sri Krishna said something very nice. She said, look, we are not this body. The one who eats or one who ate is the body. But I am not this body. I am that eternal being. I am that Parabrahma. So where is the question of I have eaten or whether Durvasa Mahamuni has seen you? It is only the gunas are performing in the gunas. Obviously, this knowledge is not understood by Radha Rani or the gopis. They couldn't get what Lord Shri Krishna was saying. But the truth about what a yogi is, they don't, their senses are not interacting when the contact of the sense objects. The bodies perform its action just as a sacrifice, which is what we learned in chapter 3 and 4. The sacrifice is being performed, but their body is just performing that sacrifice. But they, as a divine being, are not interacting with the sense objects. Because they are perfect understanding of who they are. They are always lost in their own self. They are God realized. In the sense, they are the Lord Almighty. They know the truth. So where is the question of them performing any action? So the gunas perform in the gunas. The senses move amongst the sense objects. So they have this perfect understanding. Yet that is why they don't get tainted by what is happening around them. And this is the truth. To attain this state, you have to first understand what it means to be in the yoga. So the yogi here, whose senses are completely under control. Their senses don't react. They're completely under control. And to whom earth, stone, gold and all are alike. That is why Lord Shri Krishna will not differentiate between anybody. For him, he can see everything as him alone. Because he knows it's a manifestation of his own creation. And so, he enjoys in the Leelas. It is a play. He's very playful. He's enjoying the play with Radha Rani and the gopis because everything is a play alone. It's so beautiful. But when you think this whole world is such a painful thing, it's a painful existence, then you're not going to enjoy that beautiful Leela. So the sweetness is never going to be understood by you. But when you understand that it is all the divine play, when you see God in everybody, then you will realize that it's such a sweet play of the divine Lord. And in that you can only experience that sweetness. That is why Lord Shri Krishna is also known to be the Rasika, the enjoyer of all the rasas, the sweetness that exists. And that is why he performs the Ras Leela with the gopis. You know how sweet it is, but to understand this truth, we have to evolve ourselves. And so, it said stone and spoken alike. He is spoken of as a God-realized soul. Such is the being who is then understood to be a God-realized being, a God-realized soul. So, how do you recognize the God-realized soul or marks of a man who is a realized being? And here, this is what Lord Shri Krishna has explained. How do you recognize them? But can we ever see everything alike? No, we can't. Like Ramakrishna Paramahamsa says, you give me a stone or a piece of gold, both are same to him. For him, it doesn't make any difference. But for a common man, the moment it says gold, his eyes will be lit up and he's like, I want the gold. But he can't see the stone and the gold has to be the same. They can't make the difference. That is the mark, the quality of a yogi or a God-realized being. So let us continue. He who looks upon well-wishers and neutrals as well as mediators, friends and foes, relatives and inimicals, the virtuous and the sinful with equanimity stand supreme. Oh my God, this is so very difficult. I think we should right now shut up, shut this scripture and not move ahead, because to attain this is the most important thing. Can you ever see this? He who looks upon well-wishers and neutrals, as well as mediators, friends and foes, relatives and inimicals, the virtuous and the sinful with equanimity stand supreme. Can you see everybody with an equal eye? That is all he's talking about. Can we, we discriminate, oh, this is my friend, this is my relative, that is my, that's a foe, that's an enemy, someone is a sinful person, someone is a virtuous. We discriminate between the right and the wrong, the good and the bad, all that. See, what is he's continuously talking about? He's talking about equanimity of mind. How do you attain it? You can only attain it when you see God in everybody. See, how do you see everyone with an equal eye? Is when you see God in everybody. Because he says, I am the one who's living in the hearts of all beings. What does that tell you? That God resides in everybody. But the manifestation doesn't happen in everybody because we are all covered. The divinity manifests only in certain people because of the purity of the heart, the mind, and surrender to the divinity that should happen within us. If that doesn't happen, then we are always covered. We have lot of sins and everything we perform, but to understand that everybody is the creation of the divine Lord alone, and to see everyone with an equal eye is to becoming supreme. He stands supreme. That's what Lord Shri Krishna is saying. He stands in that stature of being supreme. How do you do that? So that is the reason why you have to see God in everybody. When we see certain people, we dislike them. We immediately feel aversion. We get angry, we get irritated, even just the sight or even their voice. Have you gone through, I'm sure everybody goes through some of these kind of the experiences in our own life. We like some people, we dislike some people. We can't do that. That's what Lord Shri Krishna is saying. Can you see everybody with the equal eye? Equanimity. That is what he's asking about. How do you have equanimity of mind? Only when you can see everyone as the divine being alone. Only when you see everybody is a creation of the divine Lord. Nobody is less, nobody is more. Can you see that? Can you ever experience it? And only when you do that can you stand supreme, not otherwise. So let us continue. Living in seclusion all by himself, the yogi who has controlled his mind and body and is free from desires and void of possessions should constantly engage his mind in meditation. So what is he teaching here? Living in seclusion all by himself, the yogi who has controlled his mind and body and is free from desires and void of possessions should constantly engage his mind in meditation. He's giving few methods. How do you live? How do you continuously be in the state of oneness with the divine Lord? Most important is living in seclusion all by himself. You have to see, when you're living amongst people, it's very easy to get lost in the frivolities of the material worldly existence. Which means what? Have you ever gone and met your old parents or relatives? The first thing that they will start talking to you is about their sickness, about how difficult their life is, how they went to doctor, what they are eating, what they are not eating. Sometimes it gets very frustrating. They have nothing else to talk, or they'll gossip about somebody's maid having a problem. Oh, this is what your uncle did, this is what your aunt did, this is what your brother did. They're gossiping, they're bitching about each other, they're whining. They never talk about God. And then what happens to you? If you are not staying away from people, if you're not staying in seclusion, you will also get dragged into that, that Maya, that material world. It's very easy to get dragged into that. And then you will also be indulging in that conversations. So then what happens? That oneness with the divine Lord is already gone. You also become an ordinary human being. It's very easy to become a mere, a mortal than to becoming a divine being. It's very easy. So the living in seclusion all by himself. So what is that you need to do? You have to live in seclusion all by yourself. The yogi who has controlled the mind and body. So what have you already done? The yogi has already controlled his mind and body and is free from desires and void of possessions, free from desires. He doesn't desire that I want to eat this, I want to wear this fancy clothes, I want to travel, I want more money, I want to go work. No, he doesn't desire anything. He just lives with the acceptance of what God bestows upon him. He doesn't worry about where is my tomorrow's meal going to come from. He doesn't worry about what is going to happen to my life tomorrow. Oh, what happens when I die? Who's going to take care of me? What happens if I fall sick? None of these things exist in his world. He is completely lost in his own self. He has surrendered to the divine Lord. He knows that whatever has to be will be, and the Lord is the one who takes care of him. So why should he even bother? So he's not even worried about anything. He has already controlled his mind and body. He has overcome his senses, and he is free from desires and void of possessions. He's not going to have any possession. Just imagine having one house or one a property, a money, a bank account, jewelry, you name it. All these are misery, because they will lead to misery. People fight over those petty things. Why is Mahabharata happening? Because of lust and greed. Isn't it so? Imagine Duryodhana wanted to own the kingdom. He didn't want to give Pandavas that 5 villages they asked for. So that is greed, right? And imagine this little bit of a possession can cause a huge Mahabharat war. And this war exists in every family. You think in the material world it doesn't? People fight. Have you seen families where the children fight, saying that, oh, my brother got more, I didn't get, I need to be given. They go to the extreme of killing each other, doing all sorts of things. They wash their dirty linens right in front of everybody. And what happens then? You can take the example of Ambani itself. Both the brothers split. They divided the properties, the wealth. So this is what happens. Every family, this is the truth and this is the reality. And we need to learn to accept that. That's why my Guruji says, I don't covet anything. I don't even have anything to my name. So I am free. You know what? The biggest liberation that you can ever have is becoming free, is not possessing anything in this world. You're free to walk out of this world at any time you want to. But if you have properties attached to your name, whatever the little bit of jewelry, the wealth that you have, people will come running after that. And in Guru Charitra, Lord Dattatreya, one of his principal gurus, is one bird with a food in its beak. All the birds are following it because of that little piece of food. The moment that piece of food drops off its beak, everybody goes off. It's like this. That is the world. So all these vultures will keep coming after you for that little bit of property or wealth that you have. And once you have nothing, nobody cares about you. Then you are not even known in the world. But if you have a little bit, then everybody is after you for that. This is the truth about life. So here Lord Shri Krishna is saying, so be free from desires and void of any possessions at all, and should constantly engage his mind in meditation. So he should be constantly engaged in only doing meditation. So you have to meditate, and once you meditate, then you are going to be evolving. So you are slowly going to overcome all your the tendencies, the vrittis, all that is there. You're going to dissipate. That's what happens. So let us continue. Having firmly set his seat in a spot which is free from dirt and other impurities, with the sacred kusa grass, a deer skin, and a cloth spread thereon, one upon the other, kusa below, deer skin in the middle and uppermost, and cloth uppermost, neither very high nor very low. So he's teaching about how do you sit in the meditation, what kind of the mat that you need to have. Having firmly set his seat in a spot which is not going to be disturbing, okay, which is free from dirt. Your surrounding has to be very clean, because purity is very important. So you have to always ensure there is clean, all your surrounding, everything has to be kept clean, spick and span, and other impurities with the sacred kusa grass. So he's saying all the other impurities free from dirt and other impurities with the sacred kusa grass. See, kusa grass was available in those times, and I'm sure a deer skin. Today, if you have a deer skin, you will be jailed. And a cloth spread thereon. So one upon the other. So kusa grass below, on that there's a deer skin. On the deer skin is what? A cloth. So he's asking how you have to make your the seat on which you will be sitting to meditate. So deers, okay, in the middle and cloth uppermost, neither very high nor very low. So it should not be very high nor very low. So it should be in a way which is where it is a good position for you to sit and a comfortable position for you to sit. And occupying that seat, concentrating the mind and controlling the functions of the mind. Concentrating the mind and controlling the functions of the mind and senses. He should practice yoga for self-purification. Why is this seating very important? Because when you sit on the floor, the energy will dissipate, right? The energy will flow off. So the kusa grass or the deer skin is a layer which will let that energy be when you sit and meditate. So here is saying, and occupying that seat, concentrating the mind and controlling the functions of the mind and senses, he should practice yoga for self-purification. So what happens when you do this? When you practice meditation, concentration, concentrating your mind, when you do that, you're practicing how to overcome your mind, body, senses, everything that is disturbing you. You're working towards controlling your mind, your body and the senses, and then you will be able to purify yourself. You will be able to purge off all the sins. That is what it means. How do you dissipate the karmas? How do you purify yourself? Purification of heart, the mind, and then only the surrender happens unto the lotus feet of the Divine Lord and the Guru. So here he's talking about, when you sit concentrating, the mind and controlling the functions of the mind and senses, he should practice yoga for self-purification. And what happens in that state? You become one with the Divine Lord. You achieve union with the Divine Lord. So he should practice yoga for self-purification. So why do you need to practice this? For self-purification alone. Purification of what? Again I said, purification of your heart, the mind. Only then the surrender is complete. And when this heart and mind is purified, in that you attain that God realization where you're always in oneness with the Divine Lord at all times. And then there is no way anything in the world can ever disturb you. So with that, we will finish and stop our satsang here and continue from verse 13 onwards in the next satsang. Thank you for joining the Bhagavad Gita Satsang, the way of life as described by Lord Shri Krishna to Arjuna. Om Shri Mahaganapate Namaha, Om Shri Gurudev Datta, Om Shri Sachidananda Sadguru Sainath Maharaj Ki Jai, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Digambara Digambara, Shripad Vallabha Digambara, Om Shri Krishna Gurunath Nathaya Shri Guruve Namaha, Om Devi Durgaya Namaha, Om Shri Krishna Arpanam Namastu, Krishnam Vande Jagat Gurum.